Joe Budden instructs his actors not to bring up Rory and Mal ever again. In an indication of growing hostility between the ex-friends who pod, Rory, Mal, and Joe start making passive-aggressive jabs at one another. It has increased over the past few weeks as a result of the New York Times piece. And will this ever be over, man? Most likely not. Because of this channel will constantly be fun. People began discussing all of the podcasts that are now available when Joe asked their guests from the 52 podcast about what was happening with the loudness. Joe and Jada, Angie Martinez, 52, and of course the names of Rory and Mal are brought up. Imani would remark that the 52 podcast brings back memories of the Joe Budden podcast with Rory Mal for him or everyone else. Yes, exactly. Recall how the Joe Budden podcast with Rory and Mal was the pioneer of podcasting at the time, relying more on chemistry and camaraderie than the guest-based dynamics that many would later adopt. Some people, I guess, think Rogan stole a little bit of it. I can tell that the Rogan fans in the comments are going to go crazy. However, many people believe Rogan stole part of that sauce. Many people believe that Charlemagne used some of that sauce when he rewrote The Flagrant and Brilliant Idiots. People believe that their pals pod dynamic was imitated by many others, and even the set's appearance endures to this day, with people like Wezzy and Mandy replicating the same dynamic, that same past. Many people have attempted to achieve that, and I believe that was Imani's point. Joe then demands that Rory and Mal never be brought up on this podcast again. Although it was done in the best interests of justice, it is also contradictory because Joe Budden is the one who most frequently brings up Rory Mal. He never stops observing those guys. Additionally, I think that I must be honest. Every podcaster does this anytime they break up with someone. I'm not lying. Even though I'm sure none of you are aware of it, I'll be keeping an eye on some of the folks who broke up with me and saying, yo, let's see what they are doing. I don't give a damn about them, not because I'm thinking, oh, I miss them. After hearing all of these viewpoints about how you want things to function, I just want to see how you put everything together. And I will continue to follow you as if we were close friends, just because I want to see if you can carry out the vision you claim to have, and since you were so critical of my approach. And Joe Budden's doing just that. He cares a great deal about how Rory handles Mal and his peculiarities as a content producer. I recently made a video on the subject. Correct. The messiness is a natural feature of hip-hop urban podcasting, even though Mal doesn't want to discuss it. Its origins date all the way back to the radio era. You had to either play music or pray you weren't fired because you wouldn't get radio ratings if you didn't talk about the disaster. You begin to lose when someone begins to receive higher ratings than you because they're willing to go there. Joe is watching that. Okay, for example, how do Rory and Mal function without his guidance? To be fair, without Joe, I believe Rory and Mal have been doing fantastically. Many people I know have told me that they were going to be successful because in the past, people believed that their podcast would be discontinued in 2 years, and they had completed about 3 deals. They completed the Studio 21 deal, the Sirius deal, and the Volume deal. But because the Volume demands numbers, I do worry how long that will persist. As you know, the Volume is looking for people who will drive traffic and gamble. And additionally, it could be argued that they've been purposely focusing on a specific niche for the past few years. So there is a negative aspect to that because their marketing team probably thought, hey man, we need to, cater to an audience. Sports fans enjoy gambling, but let's identify some hip-hop audiences to reach. That's what's happening. And when I conducted the interview, I was attempting to awaken Rory to it. For example, I believe that the key to podcasting is volume.
You think you have a wonderful bargain. In the meantime, they are engaging in marketing gambling. All of these predatory business tactics are being promoted by them. Additionally, you've stated on your show that you detest the numerous issues that gaming has caused in America. In actuality, it's an epidemic, a silent one. People you converse with on the internet are discussing, hey, I just did this parlay. All I did was this and that. You witnessed Gilbert Arenas. This place is ridiculous. In any case, I digress. That was a little tirade. However, share your thoughts with me. Do you think that the tension around Joe Rory Mal is justified? I believe that there is absolutely no room for humor when there is a significant fallout, when individuals feel like they were stabbed in the back, or when they feel like they weren't paid. What are the appropriate jokes to make if you believe someone has defrauded you, as Mal does, or if you believe someone has used deceptive tactics to minimize your worth, as Rory did? Additionally, Joe believes Rory is a fine podcaster, so he isn't making a big deal out of him. He is making a huge deal out of Rory to annoy Mal. And if you go back in time, Joe claimed that Rory was a small white lad who was attempting to split the cast and turn Mal against him. With Rory, he tapped into all of the gatekeeping and cultural "they don't like us" narratives. Last but not least, each of these parties has spread false information about the other. I brought up this idea in my earlier videos. People believe Joe Budden is a crook because of the way he handled the accounting with Rory and Mal, and they believe Rory and Mal are lazy jerks because of the way they handled the end of their time on the Joe Budden program. Therefore, no. Even when they joke about each other, I don't always assume it's kiki. Yes, exactly. That's amusing. This is enjoyable. It's overcast. It's true. They have that ingrained in their dynamic. And we'll have to wait and see how things develop. Rory and Mal have not yet responded. I suppose that they will. They will likely accept mildly passive-aggressive jabs until they turn into something more substantial, in my opinion. Joe probably wants to keep things lighthearted. It really annoys him. Therefore, I believe he doesn't want it to come to the point where others are calling him a thief. He finds that narrative to be bothersome. Some stories, like the one about the thief, have a significant impact on Joe, while there are a few that annoy him, and one that I would never bring up. No one desires to be referred to as a thief. Furthermore, it implies that other persons are not known by that name. For example, Charlemagne wasn't a thief. People frequently discuss how shamans put people on. He assists others. Therefore, I don't believe he desires that. But this occurred once again on the 52nd podcast episode. I have to admit that they performed admirably. On the show, they're doing their thing. To be honest, I don't much enjoy Player Podcast, but I might have to listen to theirs. My distaste for Player Podcast stems from their rambling about how they are different from the media and sports media, but they're equally insane when it comes to playing political games. They aren't particularly judgmental of others. But I have to admit that the 52 podcast just mentioned that LeBron might be using drugs. It's alleged. I can't be mad about that because I was being honest.